All right. Episode 92. Coming at you. Thank you guys for listening. Being here, wherever you are, but also here somehow through the magic of the internet, which we talk a lot about in this episode, the magic and that dark magic, the dark side of it. And, you know, it's been a prevalent theme, especially, you know, as social media and, you know, the addictions therein have become more ubiquitous and obvious to us all. And Isaac McFARLANE, our guest, is bringing a really unique and just great perspective because he's from New Zealand, so this sort of magnified through his lens, being isolated in this island and only having this window into our culture, global parkour culture that is, through these online platforms and not really getting to engage and interact in the flesh quite so often. And so we talk about that and we further that conversation and further my own thoughts and ideas on it. So I really had a good time on this one. I hope you guys enjoy listening and get something out of it. And there's some, you know, ideas and recommendations on what we can do moving forward, and some nods to the people that are, you know, blazing those trails. So thank you again, Isaac McFARLANE, for being a part of this, sharing your perspective, bringing New Zealand to the ears of the listeners, and much love to you guys. We'll see you real quick on the next, or at the end of the episode. Here's Isaac.
Yeah, cool. So like we can just get started with the topic if you like.
Please, by all means.
Cool. So the main thing that's come to my attention, and it's happened like throughout my parkour career as a tracer from New Zealand.
Before we dive right into it, I would like actually to just know a little bit more about you and your history of what got you to like arriving in this at this point of view.
Yeah, cool. So I started free running like probably 11, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we've got a small community here that has always remained like real tight-knit, real cool, real fun. And we're definitely removed from the rest of the world. But I don't think quite so much as people seem to think. I've done a fair amount of traveling, and it seems like people treat New Zealand as like a real faraway land and a mystical land in Middle Earth, essentially. Yeah. And that's cool. We'll totally take that. But also, yeah, we have had the odd times where it's we feel removed from the worldwide community in a bad way. Like when we want to be a part of the scene, you know. And we've had to rely a lot on the internet, really, YouTube and Instagram and all of that, just to be a part of the scene. And so our development as a country, we've both had our own origins and our own ideas, and we've also just been kind of like copycats in a big way, just through learning through YouTube and all of that. In order for us to understand parkour better, we have to go to a like secondary resource to understand what you guys are thinking about it. And you might understand this as an American, like versus Europe, you know?
Yeah, surely. There's at least a little bit of that playing into that equation, you know? Everyone was a little bit behind the, you know, the initial, I kind of look at it as like, obviously it started in Every and Lease and like in these suburbs in Paris, but then in the UK, it seems like, well, that's where it kind of like blossomed, or like it just started to like at least bud or whatever, that flowering happened there. And that's where everyone's kind of been like, that's kind of the mecca now in a way, or not mecca, but it's like the source of like most of the topical, they've taken over the conversation in some ways, you could say. Like that's where the highest level content and most concentration of relevant athletes, at least in my head, seems to be.
No, I totally agree. And they're killing it. Like they're sick.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's real fun to watch.
Obviously, Store has a big part in that, you know, and like, and Storm, and there's a lot of really powerful things like Jump London and Jump Britain. Obviously, came out of that's been huge and integral into that whole storyline.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I don't know, through the years, New Zealand has managed to kind of find its own identity. And we're starting to understand like what's unique about our parkour versus other countries and so on. Um, and it's awesome. And lately we're getting quite a lot of international visitors, or a lot for our standards. It's like probably 2 to 3 a year, but, but it's real cool for us. Um, and yeah, we're starting to actually identify what the differences and similarities are between our perception of parkour versus the rest of the world's, and that's real cool. But it's
Could you name some of those? But what are some of the differences and similarities? I'm curious, like, what is it
oh
like?
man,
What's the scene in New
yeah.
Zealand like?
Well, okay, the biggest difference is your guys' access to each other. So interstate or intercountry in Europe and so on is like your ability to just visit a jam that, yes, is far away, but you can just drive there and it's easy. Whereas for us, we've got three main cities, and they're separated into two islands, and that's it. And so any jams that happen are, I guess, limited. And so the feedback from other people is a whole lot smaller. And so you guys just seem to be able to tap into a huge library, which is dope, and we're totally jealous of that. But what is also cool is like we'll have to feed off of just other sources such as our environments that will be so different. From what I've heard, we have a lot of trees here that are super sick for training on compared to what you guys might have, instead of like the standard typical brick architecture and so on. And just there's just a lot of wisdom, and especially the Europeans. We've had a lot of Irish and Germans come over here, German speakers as well, because we've had Austria and Switzerland and so on like that. There's a whole lot of wisdom in both movement and speech from everyone that's visited that like it's just so exciting for us to hear and listen to. We do feel like the younglings sometimes, but yeah, what we can bring is just an outsider perspective. Is we haven't all we know of the scene is through media, so that is the perspective that I'm hoping to bring to you today. Is talking about what it's like being a freerunner who mostly is in the scene through online means, and how fucking weird that is.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, I'm actually like I'm excited to explore some of the differences with you today as well. I don't have all the answers. Just yeah,
Nobody
cool
does.
chat.
But yeah, no, absolutely. I can imagine how that's very strange because yeah, your interactions, your in-person interactions at jams, that is a totally different experience. Like actually interfacing with other athletes in their home environments or just not over online, it's just a completely different world. And we all have a skewed perception of what's happening because of our integration with online media. There's no doubt that everyone doesn't have a slightly like weirder perception of what's going on, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And for a while there, I was thinking that like we just pretty much had one brain and all understood each other completely. But the more I grow up and the more experience I have with parkour, the more I realize that everybody's got their own perspective, their own opinions on how it works and how it should work. And yeah, I'm just hoping to bring the perspective of an averagely skilled freerunner and an averagely experienced freerunner, and yeah, just like talk to you as a nobody really, and hope to represent these kind of nobodies a bit in the scene really.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I don't know, like that idea of being nobody, being somebody, that's already an interesting topic, because everyone's sort of nobody until they're not. But what does that transition mean, and what does that even look like? I'd like to maybe put a pin in that and just ask you, like, what is it that you're seeing then from sort of feeling like you're on the outskirts, or at least the outside of these jams and some of these in-person events? When you absorb parkour media, what do you see?
cool question. What I used to see was a lot of good vibes and I used to have a real strong sense of belonging just through watching this media and experiencing it. And I just wanted to be a part of the scene. And what I see lately is a bit of a contrast. I guess I feel less a sense of belonging, and I see more athleticism and perfection and just like high level skill. And it's super cool. It's like super inspiring. I'm not hating on anyone here. I simply feel like the pendulum has swung from the days where we were hammocking and traveling and, you know, all the like real hippie stuff. The pendulum swung from that extreme over to the other side where we don't do that much, and we are really focusing on just being excellent athletes. And that is cool. That's totally cool. Both ends have their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm just hoping to kind of help tip the pendulum back the other way a little bit, because with athleticism comes elitism, and comes judgment and a bit of bullying and a few other like negative aspects that just don't help our sport. And I guess the best way I can think of this, the best way I've found to voice it, is something that my friend Martini said, is that we've got some highlighted areas within free running, like actual locations such as South England, sometimes Boulder, Colorado, and a few other places that are shining and are doing brilliantly. And then sometimes the rest of the world starts to feel more like an audience than a community. And that's a bit of a shame, and that's frustrating, because I have been doing parkour for 11 years. I definitely feel a part of the scene now. I feel like I have contributed, and I've learned a lot from this. And yet I still feel like I can't talk to, say, the leaders of our community without just feeling like a fanboy or an audience member whose like opinion is not too highly valued. And I feel like this is felt amongst a lot of people in the community, because, you know, New Zealand is not the only country that is in parkour through only online means. Like, there are most of the world actually is not part of South England or Boulder or sometimes Germany and so on, like the other like real hype places of parkour. And it's not to shit on you guys from those places. All you're doing is trying to be the best that you can be, athlete wise, and that's sick, and we need people like that. But I also think it's real important that we reflect on our core values, and we think about the limitations of what we're doing, how we're practicing, and how we are advertising ourselves, both to public and within the community. And what I mean by that is, well, actually, look at the media, look at our media. Like, do you see much diversity, or do you see the same moves, the same people, the same types of people over and over again? Like, what do you think, Brandon? When you jump on Instagram, are you feeling like there's a real good representation of the world or not?
That's a good question. I definitely don't feel like it's in my feed. I don't think like I've cultivated that complete like version of the world in terms of like what I'm looking through. And to be honest, I'm trying to spend less and less hours even being on social media these days. That's where I'm at in my life. And so that even becomes another step in this very complex problem, is like, how do we stay community, but also for someone like me and some of the things I'm going through, how do I stay connected without feeling like I have to participate on like this platform, Instagram, or through YouTube? And again, it's always a double-edged sword. We love that that our community can be so global and that we can, you know, sort of interact with each other, but it starts to seem kind of hollow. But that's sort of that's another kind of discussion in a way. But for what I see, I mean, I see, and it's very relevant these days with in the Americas at least, and I mean it's all over the world, but especially here with our Black Lives Matter movement and some of the tension and like just kind of unearthing of our past that's coming to light, especially as America. I mean, Britain's the same way. There's like even a whole other conversation to be had about like, well, why is it not so diverse? Because there's a lot of things that stand in the way of having enough, free time even to practice a sport like this if you are, historically disenfranchised, or even if you're not, just it's a huge conversation. And I think it's also part of this global phenomenon. I think like what you're experiencing is also a microcosm of what's happening maybe all over the place. It's like even when it comes to giant celebrities and things, which all have their own podcasts now, and like there's people that have kind of like it's kind of washed out, and it's like it doesn't seem to mean so much to me as it used to have a fan base. It starts to, like, in my worldview at least, I want to see people really advancing human culture and parkour culture to a level that is more focused, like you said, on something that's a little bit greater than just what I used to call just like jerking off, like the best and the brightest, or like the most athletic, because it's not evolving human consciousness to do that. We've done that. It seems like we've done that not just in the parkour community, but as a whole human species. We've experienced what it's like to have super famous people and people kind of idolize and worship them. And now I feel like it's kind of all out in the open, and everyone's just like realizing that we're all just people who live in our lives. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of placing more value on just humans as whatever story they're living. It might not have like this huge following, or they might not be this super advanced athlete, but there's clearly so much to be mined from every single point of view right now. So I don't know if that answers your question. That was kind of like spreading out and more questions asked, but yeah, it's a huge topic.
For sure, man. It is a huge topic. And it's also, look, it's not the biggest deal in the world. We can keep going this way and keep just like pushing potential and all that. And that's sweet. I miss the old days a bit, where if you met a free runner, you were like, wow, you do free running. That's incredible. Like, let's be mates, or let's get to know each other a bit more. And lately, yeah, we just don't seem to value that aspect as much. And now it's much more down to how good you are as a free runner, or how much of a following you have as a free runner. And man, you make very valid points there. Like, I too am trying to get a bit further away from social media. I think a lot of people are. I think COVID-19 has honestly activated a big like pushback against this whole celebrity culture and against this. Look, it's just like, it's highlighted that we don't need these things in our life, that they're just distractions, that they're just things to do, and that's cool. And for some people, they're like actual good pathways. But at the end of the day, does it really matter how many followers you have? Or does it really matter even like the things that you released on Instagram? Not really. You're probably not going to forget. Sorry, you're probably going to forget. But what you're not going to forget are things like jams or meaningful interactions, or just like good times and good moments. And to your credit, man, like what you're saying about just trying to actually meet people and appreciate them, that's totally the point that I'd love to drive here. I do it myself. Sometimes I'm flicking through Instagram or whatever, and I am judging completely immediately. And I'm judging between whether I'm bored or whether I'm excited by a post. And some of that's down to just my personal taste in movement and so on. But a lot of it is down to Instagram itself, like just being this place where everybody posts all this stuff. And specifically in regards to parkour, yeah, we're just posting everything all the time. So you don't get much diversity in what Instagram can actually offer you as a platform. You've got IGTV, you've got Reels, you've got just a 60-second or less video. And what that means is, because Instagram is now our like sharing and connecting tool, we can only show so much. And sorry, what I mean is, yeah, we can only show so much on Instagram. It only allows us to show like certain sort of edits or so on. And it also encourages us to do like even more specific edits. So as in, a full-on movie on Instagram would do shit compared to just a 3-second video of a nice Kong pre. And so we're just being encouraged more and more and more to limit ourselves, to not diversify, to just keep going with how we're going. And it's pretty unsustainable. Hedonic adaptation, do you know what that is?
Not exactly. No, please explain. I mean, I know the word hedonism and adaptation separately, but I'm sure as a concept I can be educated here.
Well, I only just learned it the other day whilst researching
nice.
this. But
we'll take
so far as I know, it's the kind of like heroin problem. It's the fact that you need more and more in order to get high. So it's the same with Instagram. It's like we get bored by a lot now, and we need more and more and more and more, and it's just completely unsustainable. And you might think like, well, who gives a fuck about Instagram anyway? Like, why does this matter? I don't like, a lot of people aren't in parkour for the videos and so on. They're in parkour for the parkour.
100%.
And that is awesome and great. But unfortunately, as we've established before, a lot of the world is connected to parkour through online means, and our current main online means is Instagram. And we are just being, repeatedly told to value certain aspects of parkour that Instagram values, and not to value other areas of that. And so, we just keep watching those certain values more and more as they just are repeated and repeated. And the kind of values I'm talking about are like your standard Red Bull out of motion lines with the DD roll and all, or your standard strong parkour lines that are just super, super clean and feature 3 or 4 moves that like everybody's doing at the moment. Like there are actual trends now in movement, which is pretty interesting, because I didn't really used to notice trends in movement too much. But nowadays people seem to pick up off of each other and copycat a lot. And so, that's where it comes in. The hedonic adaptation is you're watching all of this and it just gets more and more and more boring, more and more mind numbing, and you need more and more and more. And so that in turn pushes how people train. And so this is the big issue for me, is that instead of us using Instagram, like parkour people using Instagram, it's starting to feel the opposite way, where Instagram is essentially using us, and we are changing parkour to suit Instagram better. So if we go out training, half the session will be some of us filming others do parkour lines.
No, we've all been there on both sides of it. And
for sure.
Or at least I have. I'm as guilty as anybody of all the things that you're talking about.
Same. Like, and this is the thing. I'm not saying I'm a saint or anything.
No, I'm sure. No, we don't take it that way. But it's just, I think we agree that we want more out of our training, because, like you said, like I came up against the same thing. It was unsustainable, and especially in hindsight, it really didn't allow me to connect as deeply with some of the people that I even like thought I was super connected with at the time, because I was so focused on growing and as an athlete, which was sort of a deliberate and conscious decision, and sort of a side effect of something that I wasn't, really aware that was happening. by being so focused. And that stuff is really, really, there's a lot there, because I think when you talk about elitism too with athleticism, there becomes a separate kind of culture, because there's people that are kind of going to be insane about it, like I was. And then when there's people that are insane about it, they start to connect with others that are also insane about it, that want to hyper focus on this one area, like making growth in their progressions and their content and their subscribers and like this dream of making it, whatever that means, as like a parkour professional. And so you do become elitist in a way. And I definitely felt like that was something I was going through at one time, because you want to surround yourself with people that are pushing you and that are also kind of like make you feel okay about being sort of obsessed, with this dream. And so there's a benefit to it too, right? Like it's not like to disparage any of these people. We know why, but also, yeah, I don't want to take us too far into a tangent, but I'm curious, like, what do you see as like some of the remedies that are possible for some of these situations, or for at least
oh man, yeah. Oh look, and I will just note, we might go on tangents quite a bit, because this is actually quite a murky topic, like and I'm sorry to anyone listening trying to make sense
of
this.
No, if they listen to this podcast, they've gotten used to tangents in a big way.
Okay,
because I do that often.
Nice. Yeah. Oh man, look, an easy solution for just to practice is to do things like a no phone jam. Just don't bring a camera out. No, they're banned. No one's allowed to do it.
Love that.
And within that one jam, you'll just find people socializing more and are actually in the moment and actually appreciating each other, and walking away with memories that are more than just clips. And I'm a videographer. I love video so much, but that's kind of why I find this Instagram culture so offensive personally, because just so much of the content has no art about it. There's no like quality. It's only movement, and that's cool, because man, we have people in our community who are athletes, who are like Big Chillin' champion, Cullen Powell, or them. Like, I'm sure that if they are listening to this, they'll be like, I don't agree at all. Like, I want to just progress as a physical athlete, and I'm just gonna share clips. Like, I don't care too much about the art scene in that way, and that's cool. They can be that kind of person. I just don't think we all need to be that kind of person. And also, those kind of people would benefit from a community that is more diverse and is not just copying them, because essentially they are at the forefront and they are leading the way. And I'm sure it's actually scary to be a forefront athlete, as you've experienced too. You're probably questioning how legit parkour is and whether this is a pathway for your life and so on, or at least that's how I've felt in the past. And I haven't even been like, say, leading the community. So I'm just imagining that as a leader of the community, that might be quite freaky, trying to push a whole culture and a whole sport like into the worldwide scene and get us recognized and so on. I just think the job would be a whole lot easier if you had a huge team of people who have found their strengths and value them, and the strengths, are diverse. Even like if we're talking language, if we're talking types of moves, if we're talking just general representation, because right now the parkour scene is represented by white young males doing near impossible things all the time. And that's sick. Like, that's so cool. But the poor black old woman who is watching this and going, well, I'm never going to join in because these people don't represent me at all. And I don't feel a sense of belonging there, and just doesn't even consider it. And I find that real sad. I don't know if you've noticed, but I do feel like there are less and less just dressiers and free runners at the moment. And we tend to have like a lot of kids and gyms and people who know about parkour, which is cool. but less and less people who just frequently go out on the streets and train and practice. And I feel like that is a lot to do with, our media and how we're representing ourselves. When you get that sense of belonging, like very little else matters. It doesn't really matter who you're with or what you're doing or whatever. If you feel a sense of belonging with that group, then you can just have a real fun, good time. And that's all we're really looking for in life, isn't it? Like just trying to have a good time till we die. I don't know. That might just be my perspective.
Hey, that's as good as the one as I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I think that question's like probably more it sounds more specific, I think, at first, but I think it probably is like pretty general when you get really down to the core of what human life is about. There's certainly other theories about what's important, and
Sure.
I don't know, but I like that one. That's where I think that there's stages for sure too in life where fun is really important to you and sense of belonging, and then there's a certain, and this is just because of what I've been studying and certain things, but there might be some periods too where individualizing yourself, separating yourself from the collective and forming a bit of a more original identity can also be part of your evolution. And then coming back to that collective with greater wisdom and expanding that community actually by forging a path, And I point to Tim Sheaf all the time on this podcast because he's somebody who completely like dropped off the parkour culture in many people's eyes, I think. I don't know if you know Tim Sheaf, but in my opinion, what he's doing, and this is my point of view, is that he's actually expanding what it means to be somebody in our community by doing all these other things and not really practicing parkour, but as somebody we can claim as someone that we at least know parkour sharpened his mental fortitude, who he is, and his worldview. He represents a part of our community, especially him because of like all the things he did, but also to give like a less known example, there's like there's just people like in and around my community even that like no one really knows, but they're really they uphold a lot of parkour culture in the community, and they're maybe even really talented, but they spend zero time on Instagram. But in my head, just knowing that person is a very dedicated practitioner and he doesn't actually participate in some of these conversations, it makes it more okay for me to feel like, okay, yeah, I can also just be more I have more choices, I guess you could say, open to me as an individual when it comes to how much to participate and what it means to be a parkour athlete or be a member of this community. So there's different ways to like engage with it. You can engage with it on a very localized level, regional level, or at the global level. I'm not sure where we got started in that, but what were you asking, or did you even ask me anything? I'm like, what? Why am I talking?
No, it's good, man. It's good. Please, like, I'm not here to spiel and you to just listen. I like hearing your points for sure. So no, I think I get what you're saying, and I slightly feel like you're telling me off for caring too much about social media and so on with parkour, and you're saying that there are more options, and that if you get out of the online source, you can still enjoy parkour and enjoy life just for yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I definitely don't feel like I'm trying to tell you off, but I am saying that like I think it's awesome that you care, and I think it's awesome you're bringing this to my attention and to everyone's attention. Hopefully, like this is one of the episodes I'd like to more and more people to hear for sure, because it's really easy to forget, and I've been there, what's happening outside of yourself, and forget actually what's important just in life, and how insignificant, no matter whatever like number you peaked at in terms of or whatever you accomplished, it doesn't mean something if you can't really look back and like you say, like have these memories and connections and bonds with people that go deeper than, you know, than they can on the internet, or they can when it's just about like what you can do athletically. So I'm a huge fan of what you're bringing to the table here. I think that it's just important sometimes to remember that you can make it what you want. You don't have to. You definitely like can redefine it. And I think part of the problem with this whole Instagram and social media narrative is that it is not questioned, and it isn't. It's just like right. It's just accepted as part of our culture, and also everyone, like the whole world's culture, is just like, well, this is just kind of what we do now. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be. And I don't really think the movers and shakers of the future are going to participate in this much longer. I think they're going to redefine it, what it means.
Certainly hope so, man. That'd be real cool. And we are seeing some real cool media coming out. Like YouTube is making a bit of a comeback. It's not only vlogs now. And
yeah, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of? I mean, obviously there has been some response to this. Like, there's been some people that feel the same way you do. Soul Destroyer was a big answer to that, in, you know, coming from the Modus projects, and they're doing some cool things with having this flow team and really trying to make more avenues for athletes to participate and at least feel like they're, you know, like we talked about, like going somewhere with this, you know, all the effort they're putting in. And then there's Jimmy the Giant's content with the Save Your Clips and this movement to like kind of make more of these videos. Breach has also, that's been a part of their mission, it seems like, you know. And again, these are pretty much UK based brands, but like, what do you think of some of that shift that we've seen?
I think,
or do you
awesome,
see it as a
and
shift?
it's long called for.
Mm-hmm.
And mate, yeah, no, for sure. Especially the flow team that they've created, like, yeah, they've got some women in there, they've got some different nationalities in there. I'm yet to really understand it and know what they're going for with it, but that's totally a step in the right direction, and it sounds great. Jimmy's Discord as well. I've seen it a couple of times and I've heard some good things from some friends. He's just opening up the floor to nobody's, to anybody's, to hear their voice. And then he is helping. Sorry, do you know about the Discord?
I don't even know about the Discord. Oh, Jimmy's Discord.
Yeah, Jimmy's Discord.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've glanced. Yeah, I know about it now. I remember.
Yeah.
I lied a second ago.
It's an open chat. He brings up topics, and he welcomes people to come and talk about it, and he listens. And that's very cool, because he can then put those ideas into his content, which is widely recognized, has a big audience, and he can share it that way. And his videos as well are bringing back some culture. You know, he's like talking about the old days quite a bit. He's or he's also forward thinking, trying to set up, say, World Chase Tag as a more established sport within our sport. And yeah, that's cool. That's real banging. And then we've also got things like Kipper Jumps. Is it Kipper Jumps? They do a magazine at the moment that I've seen. And that's just like a super genius way of another form of medium for us to share our content, is through magazines and so on.
We got
because
Emily's lookbook here, and this is the first cover of Move Mag. But yeah, just to give a few examples. But I know there's more.
Yeah, beautiful, man. And to be honest, I might even just be starting my own magazine soonish,
about
the Auckland scene and all that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, there's some cool art going on, and I think we should celebrate that more. So I'm asking the individual athletes of the world to care a little bit less about our standard ways of doing things, as you say, our unquestioned just kind of addiction and obsession with social media, and and instead focus on just other ways that might be less recognized, and you might get less attention from them. But if you check out these magazines, if you get involved with the magazines or with the Discords or with the YouTube videos and so on, you'll be making stuff that you're genuinely proud of, or you'll be involved in a community that might be smaller than the whole world, but is just super, super, super exciting. And then as individual athletes, if we can help celebrate these things, they will have more growth and we will feel more connected, and we'll be bringing back that sense of belonging in parkour that, yeah, I kind of feel like we're missing at the moment. And the benefit of that is just that we'll get more people joining in. We'll get more cool conversations, and we'll see more dope movement, and we'll just have more. Like, why are we so limited at the moment? Why are we so happy to be so limited? Why don't we want to diversify more? It'll just make our sport way, way more fun and way better, in my opinion, anyway.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think there's a sense of like plateau that we haven't yet like broken through at the stage we're at, and that goes in training. It like goes in life, and it certainly goes with like the whole culture in terms of like what's our next evolution going to be. And actually, even like you say, like you can keep doing what we're doing, but I don't even think that would be, if that, even if you want to have like the views and the eyes on you and things, that's not going to be the best route anymore. It's always going to be better to innovate, because you're really giving something to the community, and by doing so, if that's what you want, you'll have some people that appreciate that for sure. And like you said, by copycatting, I mean, we've definitely seen a lot of the of people just kind of replicating moves, and it's hard, too, to push yourself outside of your own comfort zones when you reach these plateaus. But I think for me, like even just staying involved sometimes can be difficult when you're a little bit older. I don't know how old you are, but how old are you?
I'm 26.
26. Oh, killing the game. young chicken. Sprung
I'm
chicken.
feeling old, man. I definitely feel like an old guy sometimes.
You guys got young sprung. No, you're but that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think, one of the people I really admire and I appreciate is people like Sebastian, who are still here with us, in blue, and Tim, whatever, anyone who's still like living as somebody that, is participating in some of these conversations, whether they're super directly focused on parkour or not. That helps others just kind of know that they can stick around too. And it's not, maybe it does. I'd like to think it does, I guess. But
Dude,
it helps me. It helps me to understand that some of these folks that are, their knees aren't completely busted out, or they don't just like, they'll just touch base with us here and there, and who knows if we'll get to hear from some of the other founders down the road, just when we need them most or something. But I could see that happening, because there are so many untold stories still from some of those guys that, might remind us of what we're here to do as a community.
Nice, man. That's real cool. And look, I'd say your podcast is definitely a great example of that, man. I've heard you before talk about how you're feeling a bit disillusioned sometimes, or just a bit old and a bit irrelevant. And although I disagree, it's also cool to hear you saying these things and yet still wanting to be a part of it and to share your thoughts and ideas, and they're definitely valued. And they just represent something a bit different to the usual athlete as well. Your ideas there. So, that's beautiful. On the flip side is something that was brought to my attention before is the beginner. Do you find yourself training with beginners much at the moment?
At the moment, actually more than I used to, but not very often still, no.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both too. I wasn't for a good while, and I'm trying to get back into it, and I'm enjoying it. I know that it's cool to train with your friends. It's always a good time, and it's always so easy to just hit up your friends and train with them. But training with beginners, is great for the beginners, obviously, because they're getting some experience and they're getting their hand held a bit as they dive into the scene.
Mm.
But also, yeah, once again, it is great for you to just get an outsider's perspective and to understand parkour. Like maybe you'll be reminded of some old values that you have, or maybe they'll bring something fresh to the table, and it'll just spice up your training a wee bit. You know, it'll make it that bit more memorable, that bit more exciting. And if we value these beginners more, then we will get more beginners and we will get more people into the scene, and it will legitimize parkour that much more. And I would also argue that we need more beginners in our media as well. I remember when Sean Wood was in Farang, not that he was ever, sorry, he was a beginner once, but he wasn't a beginner in Farang. But he represented the kind of more the average athlete without being offensive to the dude. He's an amazing athlete, but
Absolutely.
compared to a lot of the level that we have out there, and especially within Farang, he was the guy that I related to a whole load more, and I really valued that. And there are examples of that throughout heaps of the teams. There's always the like guy who's not quite as skilled, but is still in it, is still excited, still wants to be there. And that's just like, yes, like that's what we want to see. Sasha on the water challenges in Stora lately, like
Absolutely.
he's just undervalued as an athlete generally, and yet he will just come to the table with these exciting fresh ideas, and the whole team just love him. And if you scroll through the comments, you can see that everybody loves him, and it's just wonderful because it's pushing that idea of parkour that is exploration and discovery and a bit of risk as well. We can only watch incredible athletes doing incredible things for so long before our mind becomes numb. And so we've got to see these people who are just in it to give it a try. And that's super, super dope. And I want to see more of that, and more, more beginners as well in the media, so that these people feel represented and so that they want to be there. I was chatting to a free runner who has just started, and they pointed out that kind of the free runner starter pack right now includes an Instagram account. Like you don't necessarily go out and train the fundamentals. You go out and you put the camera down, and then you train your fundamentals, or I guess actually a bit more, you perform. And that performing, it's just scary, man. It's like there's a whole load of pressure. You end up doing things that are for your audience rather than for yourself. And so you're not truly representing yourself in your media. And I've seen a clip recently of a trace use. Oh man, I actually hate these words. I don't know why I'm using them in this conversation. But yeah,
I like to put the French on it, but I can't really do it that well.
But yeah, I saw her like just doing essentially a 2-foot pre to a ledge that was barely off the ground, and she wasn't making it, and that was her Instagram post. And I was just like, I'm not against what you posted, but I am against the fact that you felt the need to film that at all, and that your mind wasn't focused on your own training, but you were focused on releasing this to the World Wide Web. When really, like, if you're at that beginner point, I really think you should be just doing parkour and enjoying parkour, because that's what you're there for, or at least that's what I think you should be there for. I don't really have much respect for people who are using parkour to just say get fame, you know? Maybe that's just my thing.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum there, right? Because I feel you big time. I'm like, if you actually want that kind of path in your training, then you should understand that you will not get far without really honing the fundamentals and knowing yourself and doing the practice, which I think is about knowing your limits and then knowing how to push them safely and really knowing the techniques. And it's easily corrupted when when you get sidetracked with the performance aspect of it, which can be very fun, and it can be its own motivation and something that people want in their own way. But I think you have a very legitimate point there, in that is that really the way we want to build our culture, and is that the way that is there really value in that? Because just by the very nature that these clips are coming out every day, you know, you might want to just ask yourself, am I really providing that much value if it's something that I can do every day? You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah.
Which I think is that's a question I've been asking myself recently, even with the podcast. You know, some of these conversations, I'd like to up level some of the conversations we have on here, because it's in part because there is so much content out there. And so it's not that I'd like, oh, I need to stand out, but I really don't want to waste people's time either. You know, like if they're going to be listening to me, which by and large, they probably shouldn't be doing. There probably is better things to be doing with their time. Listen to Isaac, but skip the parts where I'm talking. No, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like there's a lot of things to be doing. And if I'm going to be someone who is sort of moving in a direction where I'm like, I don't think it's actually healthy for human beings to be spending more and more time on their devices and things, then in keeping with that, I need to try to provide perhaps higher quality content less frequently than I was doing, you know, because for sure there's a lot of fun to be had in just like not really thinking about it and then putting it out there as well. You know, I enjoy doing that very much, but.
And look, like these things exist for a reason. Parkour doesn't have much of a pathway. We are still a young sport. And so things like Instagram are great tools because you've just got statistics to follow. You've got like goals to achieve. You're trying to reach the 500 follower mark, and then the grand, and then the 2 grand, and so on. And it helps keep us connected. I definitely think there is a place for Instagram. It should be a tool and not the tool. Especially if we're wanting parkour to grow, because we're within Instagram's limits right now. Whereas if we celebrate the other creative aspects and ways of sharing our talents, then we just won't be so limited at all. Our sport will grow. Oh, voice break. And yeah, so look, I do understand why a lot of people will just want to stick to Instagram and keep doing this. It's cool. It is a pathway. And also the world in general demands quantity over quality. Like the amount of Disney films that come out, like year after year, like there's just so many. It's incredible. But there just is a theme of needing more and more and more and more. But unfortunately, it does mean that the art within is just lost. And that one post you made that was a banger, where you did stuff that was just absolutely stellar, no one will rewatch it. Just like, who actually goes onto accounts more than like, and looks back at things from like, more than a week ago or so on. Like, they might rewatch it the next day, but they're not going to go back searching through your feed to check out your stuff. And so you are always represented by just what you can do in the moment at the time. And it's just once again limiting. And I just want people to look at parkour and think like that we are a cool bunch of friendly, nice people who are doing something different. Because that's kind of what parkour is. It's about doing something different. It's about looking at this environment that has not been made for you and for what you want to do, and you're just gonna do it anyway. You're gonna jump on this wheelchair ramp and just do things that like blows people's minds, not just due to your athleticism, but due to your creativity and your willpower as well. That's the community I want to see, is like one that really appreciates why we do what we do, and just celebrates each other for doing it. Cool.
I'd like that too. Yeah, I think it's really helpful to embrace your environment, like you're saying. Embrace those limitations, in quotes, for the people listening. You know, like, I think that's probably one of the cool things that, you know, I don't know if you know that much. I don't know what it's an ology of types, but there's some, it's like a zoology or whatever. It's like about animals, but like when you're on an island, right? Like Madagascar, you have all these like really unique, crazy subspecies because they are isolated on that island. And they like, there's like all these weird things that happen biologically with creatures that evolve, you know, separate from a mainland. And so I love thinking about that. Not obviously with New Zealand, it's perfect metaphor because it's an island or two islands or whatever, and it is isolated. But even in your own neighborhood, like, I love encouraging people to use the architecture around them and let it influence their style. Let it change what parkour is about. Don't like look for the walls and the bricks if there aren't any, or like drive 40 yards. That's not very far. You could drive 40 yards. You could walk. You could tiptoe 40 yards. But but just allow it to change you, because like you said, I think that's part of the true spirit of it is, you know, that adaptation. And that's one of the areas where I can see the most growth is the different kinds of terrain that people actually work with, and the different kinds of obstacles people engage with or don't engage with, you know? So I'm a big fan of that. Is there anything that you'd really like to point to, or anything that you feel like if people don't know enough about these people and the way they're what they're bringing to the table, or different ways to look at it, that you are keen to right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point there of using environments the way they should be used, specific to that environment, man, I can't give enough credit to Matthew McCreary from Ireland, who you might know because he is starting to get a bit of fame now.
I don't think I've seen him. What's his Matthew McCreary?
Matt McCreary. I don't actually know if he ever calls himself Matthew, but
cool.
Yeah, Matt McCreary, MCR. But he is a super dynamic athlete who, does like a lot of funky, weird, trippy movement, but it pretty much is always responding to the spot. And that is something that, we definitely should value. It's super, super cool to see you can tell when somebody has created a line according to the spot instead of just trying to get the move in that they want to do, and they're just going to use it here at that spot. And it tends to create lines that are just really fun to watch. They cover ground, they are exciting, and also often a wee bit terrifying because it can only happen at that spot. And if you don't know that spot, then you're trying to apply the same mentality to your own kind of spots, and you're like, whoa, that's so bonkers. I find it wakes up the mind a lot. So Matt is one of the guys like that. And then you've got some bigger athletes. Another Matthias Meyer is gold for that kind of thing. Actually pretty much all the German athletes are gold for that.
And is it Matthias? I don't actually know how to, whatever his name. He's actually putting out some interesting theory too behind, I don't know if you've seen some of those videos as well, but he gets real deep on how he thinks about training, his philosophy on it, which is another thing I'd like, that kind of is in keeping with this whole theme, is expanding, like, okay, well, you can show your parkour, you can also speak about it, and push the boundary that way. So keep going, please. Sorry to cut you off.
It's cool. That's great. That kind of stuff, that kind of side media that is related to parkour but isn't just parkour, I really appreciate, and that definitely builds the culture a lot. But other athletes as well. We've got, is it Move in Motion? Melbourne Motion from Melbourne. They do something called Woke Core, which you should just check out yourself. It's actually like super cool. Melb in Motion.
All right, Melb in Motion.
Yeah, and then I'd just also like to point out my own little channel called Easy Life, or Easy Life Graham. where, yeah, I am focusing on community. It's not just about my movement. I am trying to push a bit of artsy scene of the, sorry, artsiness of the Auckland scene in New Zealand. And that's quite cool. And that will feature most of the athletes that I respect most at the moment, because they are here around me doing killer things and we're having real good times. So yeah.
Awesome.
And then other ways that we are able to kind of try and get away from this problem is truly just, yeah, looking at your community around you, and respecting each athlete within that community for who they are. You've seen, I assume you've seen the like kind of awful, vile, like hatred against females lately in some of the, there's been some,
I actually
some Instagram posts brought up.
I have not seen that at all. And it's partly because I'm taking a break from some of this stuff, but if you want to, please,
cool.
Please lay it out for us, because I'm completely ignorant to it.
Yeah, okay. There's just been some females who have been posting their movement lately, and they're just getting a lot of flick for it. They're getting a lot of people who are just getting annoyed that they are getting so much attention, and they're just doing kind of tall poppy syndrome thing. They're just trying to chop them down and remind everyone that they're only getting this famous because they're a girl, and if they were a guy doing the same tricks, it wouldn't work the same, and so on. And with that comes a lot of just filthy language and other gross things that men say sometimes. And it stems from the same problem of just not respecting individuals for who they are and for what they're doing and for their path and their journey. And so I would just definitely, I challenge you the next time you go out training to chat to everyone at the jam, if you're doing a jam, or if there's not much of a jam, then just to really get involved with the people around you. And yeah, to not just film yourself the whole time, or even half the time, but instead actually have a memorable occasion where you've done a game of stick with your friends, or just, yeah, going around doing challenges together, and maybe not doing the exact thing that you know will get you famous, maybe not heading up for that roof gap up there today, but instead staying amongst the friends and trying out the challenges they are doing, or encouraging your mates to go up and do the roof gap with you as well. But yeah, just getting a bit off the show off kind of mentality and a bit more into the community mentality. I think that will help heaps. And yeah, you could go that step further by just banning phones completely for a whole jam and forcing everyone to have a good time together. But sorry, let me just consult my notes for a second.
Please do. Yeah, I love that idea of the no phone jam.
Yeah. Have you done one before?
No, never. I've never been to one. I like that though a lot, because just as bad. I mean, and again, first one, raise my hand to be guilty here, but it's like when you're asking people to film for you, it's always fine, but also it can be like 60 attempts, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, and I've definitely, like, you know, by the time someone's done filming me, they've cooled off, and I've kind of ruined their session in some ways. It's like, I don't want to be that guy, you know, but I've been him for sure. So
look, and it's going to happen sometimes. Like sometimes you just,
it's just going to happen. It is what it is. Yeah. But I just like the idea of it. It just take your, you know, it's just expanding, you know, expand your go out training solo, bring no phone, bring no GoPro, do what you got to do.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
To see what it feels like.
It just feels raw. Have you done much solo training without a camera?
But more recently, yeah, very much. I've been going out a lot, just kind of like exploring on my bike, and then I'll just kind of like wander around, because I moved recently, so I'm like a big cat exploring my territory, is what I like to think of it as. I'm like just looking at the borders, just like doing that, looking for territory, and just like where the other buildings are that are fun, or what kind of textures and shapes and yeah, like what roof gaps it may be, but also just if there's something I've never seen before that I could play with. Hmm.
How cool is that though? Like, how good does that feel? I
That's my
like that is
favorite thing,
exploration.
100% always. And I'll often, I can't convince my friends to go out with me because if you roll the dice, sometimes you get whatever snake eyes. You know, like often I'll be like
Mm.
I'll convince my friends once or twice to come out and just explore and just like we're just gonna walk that way and see what happens. And we end up just walking for 3 hours and we didn't really get much training in. And to me, that's like yes, at least we know what's over there. Now we never have to worry about it. We'll never go back, and we know. And for me, it's really fun. But then I sometimes lose points because then they're like, well, I don't want to go just exploring with you, you know. Because last time we just walked around in the hot sun for 2 goddamn hours, and I want to get some like training in, and so I understand that sentiment as well. But my favorite thing is to explore, and I'm perfectly happy to come up empty-handed most of the time.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm probably not as far as you to. I'll probably be a bit pissed off if I came up empty-handed.
Yeah, no,
But
I'm a
it's
freak, dude.
no, it's definitely worth a shot. And man, like that is parkour to me. The times that I have gone on a roof mission or just found a location and I'm just by myself and I have no media device, like that's the discovery. That's true inspiration as well. You've got
Mm,
no reason to do anything
mm,
except what you want to. There's no one telling you what to do. So what you find yourself doing is like truly about you. And so, yeah, you start to learn about yourself at the same time. Parkour starts to mean more than just parkour, and it actually reflects you real well. Um, I find that just so cool and would recommend way more people do solo training without filming about it, without even talking about it. Go do a
oh,
solo
I love it.
session and don't tell people what you did.
Yeah,
Keep it for yourself.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Preach, brother, preach. Like that's amazing. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
great. That's because, like you said, there's always reasons to look externally, and that's kind of this issue we've talked about the whole episode. Is just like, are you gonna look for more, 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 more? Are you just gonna never be satiated, or and it's a spiritual path like that people talk about honestly often too. It's the same thing. It's just that's why people become monks and they start like they end up realizing that they could look outwardly their entire lives for the world to tell them what is and what isn't and what the truth is and who they are. And as far as I can tell, anyone who's taken it to its end advises that instead of looking outward, look inward. And so I think the idea of just like making your practice super personal at least once to see what's there
Mm.
is super powerful.
Yeah, yeah, man, that's cool. And
And I don't know that
yeah,
I've
what you're
even done that. I don't know if
hmm?
I've like never told anyone about. I think like that's something that even I like could benefit from. That's awesome. 10 years into my
Nice.
training,
Do you think you'd ever become a monk?
dude. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it. It sounds pretty tempting to me. I'm very interested in the mysteries of life, and so I think if I sat down in a dark place somewhere and I didn't move for about a month, I'd probably learn something really, really interesting. So, if the opportunity presents itself, I would happily. I don't know what that commitment would look like, but I got a lot of admiration for people like in that side of the world right now, or like in that from that perspective. I'm listening to a lot
Yeah.
of folks that either were monks or just some of that Hindu, I guess, Ayurvedic perspective and tradition, because that's some of the oldest insights and the people who've kind of like sat and thought about these questions the longest. So,
Yeah, man. We tend to look at characters like that with a certain form of respect, and yet we don't seem to seek it much ourselves within our own pathways, until you've got to a point where you're just sick of how you're living. Um, an example would be, I'm sorry for butchering your name, man. I think Indis Mishenko,
oh yeah,
from Ashigaru. He is just like a top athlete, and we've just seen him completely disappear recently from Instagram, and come back just way more chill, and just he seems to be enjoying his time a lot more, and his captions sometime express a wee bit of frustration, about how he used to live, and I've heard from some of his friends as well that yeah, he essentially got to the top of the game and then was like, wow, this doesn't mean anything. Like I fought so hard for these external reasons, and now I'm still the same, and I still go to bed each night and look up at the ceiling and see the same ceiling, and I'm still myself. And yeah, and so he has kind of abandoned that mentality, and he still trains and he still does Instagram, but it just seems a whole lot more casual. And I respect that a lot, and I feel like, yeah, I should probably learn from guys like that now, instead of having to experience it myself, instead of having to get to the top of the game and then realize that it doesn't mean much.
Well, that's true wisdom. That's what I heard it described as, is like knowledge, or well, I don't know what the exact quote was, but it was basically like, smart people learn from their mistakes, wise people learn from others, or something like that, you know? So good for you, because yeah, we've seen it over and over again. Endish is not the first. Endis, I don't know, whatever, you know, we've had loads of some of the biggest names just kind of like have that, they teleport off like the grid, and they come back with a somewhat renewed sense of chillness, like you said, or purpose, or something that just seems to be like, if you're reading that, you know, you might notice that, okay, you can infer potentially that is not everything. Clearly it doesn't solve your problems. It doesn't make your life different. You're still you. So chasing that can be a trap.
It's just as you say, man. It's just not everything. It's still cool. It's still fun. You still did something for a while. It distracted you nicely, and you made some serious progression in many different ways. But it's just not everything.
Yeah.
And that is my main point with today's podcast. Is just like the way we're training at the moment only highlights a piece of parkour, and it would be way more fun if we just like dived into all the different aspects of parkour, the art, the friendships, the travel and exploration. Again, I do think we should get a bit more hammocky and all that. I know COVID's probably ruined that right now.
Yeah, what's the New Zealand COVID policies? Are you guys letting people in? Certainly not Americans. No one's letting
people in, really, man. So we were doing super well for a while. We pretty much had no cases for a bit, and then within Auckland, which is our biggest city where I live, that's just happened again. We had another round of lockdown, and so things are pretty still right now. And unfortunately, the gates are not open to people who aren't like related to New Zealanders. But man, I cannot wait for it to open again. I'm really keen to bind Aussie and New Zealand together a bit more, because we're out on the same piece of the earth, and we are isolated from the rest of the world. And it's kind of silly that Aussie and New Zealand don't train together more and do more events. So if any of you Aussies are listening, hit us up, us New Zealand community, and we will do the same back to you, because yeah, we should have a really strong brother bond by this point, I think.
No doubt. Well, seriously, man, I can't thank you enough for reminding me of all these important things. You know, I think this really makes my practice more sustainable, to be reminded of this kind of stuff, and gives me more to dig into and more meaning behind my training. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think that's cool. A pretty good place to wrap it up, unless you have anything else to say, or if there's anything you want to plug or whatever. But
yeah, just once again, I want to thank you for giving me this platform to share my ideas. And yeah, if more leaders of the community could do this kind of thing and help the nobodies and so on have a bit of a voice, we will just have a better representation of our community, and we'll understand each other so much better, and we'll have a lot more fun. So yeah, thank you again for having me on. This has been a mean chat.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. It's been an honor to work with this idea with you, through it rather. All right, thank everyone for listening, or thank you guys if you're here, and thanks, Isaac.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Peace. Blow. That's what I'm talking about. Alrighty. It's the end of the episode, so you already know what's about to happen. You can just skip just stop playing it, move on, do something important with your life, and learn something more than what I'm about to tell you, which is to do all the shit that you are asked to do at the beginning and ends of social media application things. This is the devil already. So I'm not even gonna ask. We already know what we're talking about right now. It's like Voldemort. I'm not even gonna say it, except I just did, but I'm not actually gonna say all the things. All right? You can read the description, and that's at least like a iota of a step forward. Is it's just inferring that if you want to support things, you know what to do. Taking that responsibility to do whatever it is that you support. We'll see. Who knows if we can get there? Maybe we don't get there, but I think we do it. All right, love you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.